Hi, I'm Mike Ryan. Our focus is on turquoise in America, but we have on occasion taken a look at turquoise from other countries. Most recently, our video on Chinese, Persian, and Egyptian turquoise. Today we're going to look at turquoise from a country that is remained very mysterious. It's a mysterious country. It's a mysterious turquoise, and that is Tibetan turquoise. Now, Tibet, as I said, is a mysterious place. It was so remote. It was isolated for so long. It was a theocracy where the Dalai Lama, the head of the Buddhist church, was also the head of the secular state. And it's continued to be isolated because since 1951, it was conquered by China. And there's been an effort by the Chinese government to assimilate the Tibetan people into the Chinese culture. That's a whole other story. There's a few things we do know. Number one, there's been a long period of trade in turquoise between China and Tibet. And this was documented as early as the 1200s by Marco Polo. But it could go far, far earlier. Second, we know that the Tibetan people revere turquoise in the same manner that the Chinese have traditionally honored jade. So have the Tibetan people felt in a similar manner about turquoise. The word for turquoise, yu, predates Sanskrit, which is the origin of the Tibetan language. So it goes way, way back into history. Third, we know that there hasn't been any turquoise mined, most probably, since 1951 with the takeover. So there are those who believe that all Tibetan turquoise is Chinese. There are others who say, well, while there is a lot that comes from China, there also is the original from Tibet. But we don't have a lot of historical information, and our two main sources are from Joseph Pogue and Bernard Laufer. So I think we ought to take a listen to what they have to say about Tibetan turquoise. Let me find my copy of Pogue here. This is original 1915 copy that I got from a book dealer in New York. And it was in his father's library, and his father took over for Joseph Pogue when Pogue retired as the head of the petroleum department at the Chase Manhattan Bank in New York. Because Pogue was trained as a petroleum geologist. So I think we'll just listen here to a little bit of what Pogue has to say about turquoise. Doesn't say much. Here we have, in 1730, the Capuchin friar, Francisco Orazio della Pena di Billy, in his Breva Notizia del Regno del Tibet, noted the occurrence of turquoise in Tibet. We also have Pogue, and a lot of this we're going to see is Pogue's information that's coming from Bernard Laufer, because Pogue was a professor at Northwestern University at the same time that Laufer was doing his research and his work on turquoise. It says here about Tibet, no geologic information is available concerning the occurrence of turquoise in Tibet. Now, Pogue calls it turquoise, but we're not going to do that. We'll call it turquoise. The extensive use of turquoise in that region, however, points to a local supply, and scattered through the native literature are references designating Tibetan localities where this mineral has been obtained. He then references Bernard Laufer. So let's hear what Laufer has to say about that. Now this is in 1915 when this was published. Laufer had published in his Notes on Turquoise, again, they're all using this turquoise at the time. That was kind of the literary fad rather than turquoise. But he says about turquoise in Tibet, as jade is the recognized jewel of the Chinese, so turquoise is the standard gem of the Tibetans. In the eyes of the Chinese, jade is not a stone, but forms a distinct class. To call a turquoise a stone means an offense to the Tibetan, and he will exclaim indignantly, and then he says it in Tibetan, and I'm not going to do that. This is a turquoise and not a stone. The Tibetan word for turquoise, yu, is indigenous property being derived neither from Sanskrit nor Chinese. It shows that turquoise must have been known to the Tibetans since remote times. Laufer then goes on to explain in quite a bit of detail. I'm not going to go into it here. If you want to, you can get the book from Berthold Laufer, from a 1913 book, Notes on Turquoise in the East, about the different areas that are reported to have had turquoise in Tibet. It's difficult for us to say with certainty that any particular turquoise is either Tibetan or Chinese. And that's why it is so difficult, and you'll see a lot of Tibetan turquoise on the eBays and the different places, because it's considered a bit more exotic, and perhaps the dealers think they're going to get a higher price. But really, it's very, very difficult to discern and really identify, because the provenance is so difficult. There really hasn't been any turquoise mined in Tibet that we know of since 1951. So that's a long time. And we have turquoise in very old collections in ceremonial objects that we're going to take a look at in a bit. But it's a challenge for the turquoise lover. And let's take a little closer look at what may be Tibetan turquoise. We're looking at a tray of turquoise that was represented to me as Tibetan. Now, let me say right off, I have no idea if this is Tibetan. It certainly has every appearance to me of being stabilized Chinese. That's just from looking at it. You know, as I mentioned in another video that we've done comparing natural and treated, when you pump something full of plastic, plastic just doesn't polish and doesn't come across in the same way that a fine gemstone does. And you really see that. There's a certain dullness in general to treated turquoise. Not all of it, but certainly a lot of it has that. And I kind of see that. I also feel it. Now, this may sound silly to a lot of folks, but you know, everything has its own unique frequency, energy, and vibration. And when you really have seen a lot of turquoise and you really develop a feeling for what we call zat, that energy, that vibration, you really can feel a difference with treated turquoise. So that's just my opinion. The other reason I think it's treated is its price. I bought this about 8 years ago. Santa Fe Jewelry Supply. It was 49 cents a carat. So, you know, you go in there thinking, oh, I've got the great find of the century. Well, normally if something's too good to be true, it isn't. So I have a lot of real, I I'm not at all certain that this is Tibetan, but it just gives an example of what can be represented in the marketplace. Now, what I am much more certain of is Tibetan. Are some items we're going to look at here showing Tibetan turquoise in objects from Tibet, and these date from, probably the late 17th century, some of them. And they really represent about how turquoise for the Tibetan was really integral to their life and their religion. It was more than just decoration. And we see that even if they were just mundane objects like a hair decoration or some other form of jewelry, there was a special acknowledgement given to that ornament. We also see some officials, and I'm going to read to you from the bit of information that was there at the Art Institute of Chicago, where these come from that collection. These are officials wearing Ringyun dress at New Year, February 13th, 1937. This photograph, taken at the Potala Palace, shows 3 officials wearing Tibetan dress appropriate for Losar, the 15-day lunar New York celebration. Their jewelry is patterned after Ringyan, ancient ornaments worn by kings of the Yarlung dynasty about 618 to 842. These high-ranking men, and I'm going to add to myself, since it was at the Potala Palace, they are most probably monks, wear necklaces of exceptionally large coral and amber beads. Now, of course, if it's coral and amber, you know there's some trade going on, because Tibet is a landlocked nation. There's no coral available. So definitely there was trade, and that would lead more to the idea that much of this turquoise was traded from China. There is a turquoise and gold amulet case, which is called a gao, and ear ornaments similar to examples in this gallery. So even though this is 1937, a lot of these items could go back very, very far into history and just be passed on over time. So I don't think we've solved anything about Tibetan turquoise here, but maybe we've addressed a little bit of the mystery, and maybe we have a little better understanding of how important, at least how important, turquoise has been to Tibetans.